Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The void ripped apart as the Horde Netherian arrived. From the abyss of interstellar space, a colossal fleet pierced reality, warships emerging in perfect formation at the edge of the solar system. The darkness shuddered under their sheer gravitational force, their numbers stretching across entire light seconds. The vessels, sleek and predatory, gleamed with the eerie glow of Netherian bioalloy, their hulls pulsing like living things. Massive dreadnoughts, vast enough to eclipse moons, hovered alongside swift angular cruisers, craft honed for planetary subjugation and total dominance. Inside the Niroskatal, the flagship of the invasion force, the command bridge pulsed with activity. Supreme Warlord Ulthar stood at the center, his golden ceremonial armor catching the dim glow of biolight panels. His elongated frame, a fusion of reptilian and cephalopoid features, remained utterly still, only the occasional twitch of his mandibles betraying his anticipation. Before him, an immense holographic display flickered to life, projecting a detailed scan of the third planet of this system, Earth. The image rotated slowly, revealing continents, oceans, and the faint glow of primitive orbital constructs. The readings confirmed what they had long expected. Primitives, Ulthar murmured, his deep voice carrying a note of satisfaction. Behind him, subjugator Krethis, a brute of monstrous stature clad in obsidian armor, observed the data streams with a measured gaze. His four clawed hands gripped the hilt of his warglaive, the metal groaning under the pressure. "Their world remains unclaimed," Krethis growled, "as it was always meant to be." "The progeny of our divine will," Ulthar murmured, his voice a guttural purr that echoed through the bridge. "They have waited long enough." The chamber was a grand arena of command, a massive semicircular space where holo displays flickered, projecting real-time tactical data from across the fleet. Netherian officers, clad in dark ceremonial robes reinforced with metallic plating, moved with disciplined efficiency, their tendrils manipulating consoles and interfaces designed for their multi-limbed physiology. One such officer, strategist Volkesh, a thin, wiry Netherian with deep violet skin and elongated fingers, inclined his head. "The system is as primitive as we anticipated, Supreme Warlord. The orbital bodies are littered with crude satellites and outdated stations. No energy signatures suggestive of advanced planetary defense. The humans remain stagnant, trapped in their simple existence." Ulthar allowed himself a quiet, pleased hiss. "Then it is as the records foretold. The children of Earth, left to mature, yet still blind to their purpose." He turned his gaze toward the swirling blue sphere, his expression one of practiced benevolence. 500,000 years have passed since we last set foot on this world. 500,000 years for them to prepare for our return, to build shrines in our name, to carve our images into their stones. And yet, Ulthar's many eyes flickered with displeasure. Nothing. No spires of devotion. No chants of reverence carried on their winds. They remember, but they have forgotten their place. Krethis' mandibles clicked with disapproval. "They are flawed creations, my lord. Perhaps too much of their crude willfulness remains, but their bodies are strong. Their minds are adaptable. They will serve as all shall serve." Ulthar gestured toward the great tactical projection, where Earth rotated slowly before them. "Indeed, they will. It is their fate, and if their memories have faded, we shall remind them." Volkesh manipulated the controls before him, bringing up enhanced visuals of the human world. The planet's surface was teeming with its inhabitants, the network of cities and settlements as expected. No orbital strongholds, no fleets patrolling the void. The humans had not even attempted to challenge the stars. Their civilization had not merely stagnated, it had withered, content in its ignorance. "Humans have not reached true ascension," Volkesh mused, eyes scanning the data. "Their civilization remains inefficient, chaotic. They still fight amongst themselves, waste resources on trivialities. They have not united under our teachings, nor reached the clarity of subjugation. But their bodies endure. That is what matters. Ulthar let out a slow growl, his chest expanding with satisfaction. They are ready. Krethis nodded, his voice filled with certainty. Shall I prepare the legionary dropships, Supreme Warlord? We could begin planetary descent within the cycle. Ulthar raised a single clawed hand. Not yet. We shall observe them directly. The first step is reclamation, not annihilation. Their loyalty must be secured. A murmur of agreement echoed among the officers. The Netherians had conquered thousands of species, but humans were not mere subjects. They were progeny, molded, enhanced, left to thrive until their return. There was no reason to expect resistance. Ulthar moved toward the great observation deck at the edge of the bridge, where the transparent viewing shield projected an undistorted image of the vast fleet surrounding them. Thousands of Netherian ships hung like silent sentinels in the void, their weapons dormant but ever ready. With a slow, deliberate movement, he raised his clawed hand. Begin descent. Let the heavens tremble as we take our rightful place above them. Let them witness the return of their gods. The Neroskatal shuddered as its immense thrusters activated, guiding the behemoth forward. The rest of the fleet followed in perfect unison, a wave of cold steel and silent authority. Krethis let out a low, reverberating growl of satisfaction. The Horda Netherian reclaims what is rightfully ours. Ulthar remained still, his many eyes locked on the planet below. Yes, he whispered, and they shall kneel as they were meant to. The fleet moved as one, descending toward the world that had been left to flourish in their absence. The home of their progeny. Their return was inevitable, their dominion assured, or so they believed. The Netherian fleet surged forward, an unrelenting force carving its path through the solar system. The cold expanse of space trembled under their gravitational might as thousands of warships glided past the frozen outskirts, weaving through the debris fields of long-dead celestial bodies. Their advance was methodical, unstoppable, engines humming as they crossed the orbits of distant gas giants. The shadow of Jupiter stretched beneath them, its titanic storms swirling with ancient fury. But the Horda Netherian paid no heed. Saturn's rings glittered in the void, its beauty ignored as they moved past with precision, their sights set on the heart of the system. As they neared Mars, the red giant loomed before them, its barren surface illuminated in harsh contrast against the blackness. The Netherian fleet pressed forward without hesitation, their engines thrumming with barely contained power. Inside the Neroskatal, Supreme Warlord Ulthar watched the projections unfold, a silent testament to the inevitability of their conquest. The movement was flawless, precise, an empire reclaiming what was always meant to be theirs. Proximity scans remained clear, reported strategist Volkesh, swiftly working the controls at his station. His deep violet skin shimmered under the holographic projections, his many black eyes locked onto the data streams. The only structures in orbit are crude satellites and small manned stations, devoid of meaningful defenses. Ulthar did not acknowledge the report. He simply watched, waited. Then something shifted, a faint fluctuation in the readings. "Adjust sensor sweep," Volkesh ordered, his voice sharp. "There is an irregularity." The readings flickered. A disruption, weak, intermittent, like the dying pulse of a broken star. Volkesh narrowed his many eyes at the anomaly. It was wrong, out of place, and yet the conclusion was obvious. "Minor interference. The planet's magnetic field is interacting with our instruments," he stated, unfazed. "Nothing of consequence." Ulthar gave a slow, approving nod. "Continue our approach." The Netherian fleet pressed forward, passing the barren landscape of Earth's moon. Their immense warships cast elongated shadows over the cratered surface as they neared the final leg of their approach. Then, without warning, a transmission broke through their secured comm channels. A human voice, calm, cold, steady. "This is Admiral Pablo Mackay of the United Earth Defense Fleet," the voice declared, cutting through the silence of the Netherian command bridge. "State your purpose. You are entering restricted space. Do not advance further." A silence spread through the bridge of the Neuroskatal. Ulthar's mandibles clicked once in mild amusement. Some of his officers exchanged glances, confused by the absence of reverence in the human's tone. The lesser species always recognized their place. There was always awe, fear, desperation. And yet, Maki's voice had carried none of these things. The tension was broken as Subjugator Krethis let out a guttural laugh, his massive frame shifting as he turned to face Ulthar. "They think they have a choice," he said, his voice thick with amusement. More laughter followed, rippling across the bridge. Officers shook their heads, some baring their serrated teeth in derision. The sheer audacity of the human response was absurd. Ulthar remained motionless, then finally spoke. "Transmit my response." Fulkesh obeyed without hesitation, and Ulthar took a step forward, his voice resounding through the fleet-wide channel. "Humans," he began, his tone dripping with condescension. "You misunderstand. We do not request permission. We do not negotiate. We are your makers, your rightful lords. You were shaped in our image, bred to serve. And now we have returned to claim you." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle before he continued. "Kneel before the Horda Netherian, and you will be granted the honor of servitude. Resist." He let the silence stretch for effect. "And we shall take what is already ours by force." The transmission closed. For a moment, no response came. Krethis grinned, revealing twin rows of jagged teeth. "Shall I prepare the initial strike?" But before Ulthar could respond, the human's voice returned. "Negative." The single word hit the bridge like a hammer. Ulthar's head twitched slightly. Krethis's grin faltered. Maki's voice was indifferent, detached, as if he had just dismissed an irrelevant request. "You are ordered to return to your point of origin immediately," Maki continued. "Failure to comply will be considered an act of war." A stillness fell over the bridge. The very notion was beyond comprehension. Ulthar let out a low hiss, his many eyes narrowing. "They threaten us." Krethis let out a low growl of irritation. "They dare." Fulkesh for once hesitated. "It is unexpected." Another beat of silence. Then the bridge erupted into laughter once more, louder this time, raw and mocking. Officers exchanged knowing looks, as if indulging the bravado of an insect, before crushing it beneath their heel. Ulthar remained still. Then, with intent, he gestured toward Krethis. "Advance the fleet," he commanded, his voice amused. "Let them witness the return of their gods. Any resistance will be crushed, if it even exists." Krethis slammed his fist against his chest in acknowledgement. "It will be done, Supreme Warlord." The command bridge flashed red as battle formations shifted into place. Thousands of warships reoriented, descending toward Earth, their weapons primed. Ulthar leaned forward, gazing at the slowly rotating blue planet on the holographic display. "The era of defiance ends," he whispered. They did not yet realize, but they would. Then, the first explosion ripped through the formation. A Netherian battlecruiser, once gliding effortlessly toward Earth, burst apart in a blinding inferno, its hull splitting into molten debris that scattered through the fleet. The shockwave cascaded outward, smashing into adjacent vessels, causing their energy shields to flicker violently before collapsing under the unseen assault. For a fraction of a second, the bridge of the Neuroskatal was gripped by an impossible silence, one that carried the weight of pure disbelief. Then, all at once, the bridge detonated into chaos. Officers scrambled, voices clashing over one another, the sheer impossibility of the situation shredding discipline in real time. Impact detected on the Vorthkar. Multiple vessels reporting catastrophic damage. Where is it coming from? Supreme Warlord Ulthar snapped his mandibles, his elongated pupils contracting into narrow slits. His many black eyes darted across the command holoscreens, searching for the enemy. Nothing. "Report!" His voice thundered through the bridge. Strategist Volkesh, his violet skin now tinged with tension, frantically scrolled through sensor data. "No enemy signatures! No weapon trajectories! The attacks are—" Another explosion tore through the void, obliterating an escort frigate. The remains of its shattered hull slammed into a nearby war carrier, ripping through its outer decks. A chain reaction followed. Debris and uncontrolled detonations spreading through the Netherian formations like wildfire. Ulthar's clawed fingers dug into the armrest of his command throne. His eyes flicked toward subjugator Krethis, whose obsidian-plated form was rigid with fury. "This is not possible," Krethis snarled, his heavy arms gripping the edge of the tactical console, his warglaive trembling with restrained rage. "Find the enemy. Find them now." "We are trying, Supreme Warlord," Volkesh snarled back, his composure cracking for the first time. The fleet began to break formation, pulling back from the kill zone in a desperate attempt to regroup, but the assault was relentless. Another blinding flash of destruction bloomed within the fleet. A dreadnought. One of their flagships, torn in half by an unseen force, its wreckage spiraling into darkness. Ulthar's claws scraped against his throne, the sound cutting through the chaotic noise. "Impossible," he hissed. "We have seen no evidence of a human fleet. We have seen their civilization. They are nothing." And yet in mere moments, the attack has continued, and they had lost hundreds of warships. "Locate the source!" Krethis bellowed, his eyes burning with fury. Finally, the sensors pinged, triangulating origin points. Volkesh's voice was breathless with shock. "The attacks are coming from—" He stopped. Ulthar's head snapped toward him. "From where?" Volkesh's hands hovered over his display, his mandibles twitching in disbelief. "Mars, Saturn's rings, the asteroid belt." Ulthar froze. The battlefield flickered on the main projection, revealing hidden weapons platforms emerging from their camouflaged positions, disguised as asteroidal debris, research satellites, and orbital junk. Now, they revealed their true nature. Humanity had not ignored the stars. They had turned the void itself into a fortress. "They tricked us." Ulthar's voice was low, venomous, each syllable coated in pure hatred. Krethis' mandibles curled back in a snarl, his massive form coiling with fury. Those insignificant creatures dared to deceive us? More flashes. This time, sensor readings confirmed the pattern. Directed energy weapons, magnetic acceleration cannons, stealth-guided missile platforms, pinpoint accuracy, no wasted shots. Their fleet was not being attacked in chaos. It was being dissected. Ulthar rose from his throne, his golden armor casting long shadows against the flickering light of the burning fleet outside. "Retaliate! Now!" Krethis slammed his fist against his command panel, activating full fleet engagement protocols. "Fire on all locations, level those installations, burn them from the void." Volkesh's fingers trembled as he input the commands. Netherian battleships adjusted course, war carriers turned their heavy cannons, and full planetary bombardment protocols activated. "Targets acquired," one of the officers barked. "Fire!" Thousands of Netherian warships unleashed their fury, plasma bolts scorching through space, massive shockwave torpedoes arcing toward the hidden human installations. But the weapons never reached their targets. The moment the Netherian cannons ignited, new energy pulses erupted from the darkness, interceptive countermeasures, concealed within the depths of space, suddenly activating. Humanity's defensive grid lit up. Anti-missile railgun turrets, hidden within what had seemed to be inactive lunar structures, tore through incoming warheads with mechanical precision. Energy disruptor arrays, buried within the rings of Saturn, triggered distortion fields, causing plasma volleys to dissipate harmlessly into the void. Krethis stared in horror. "Our weapons are being neutralized." Volkesh's voice was barely a whisper. "They prepared for us." Ulthar felt a slow, cold rage seep into his bones. 500,000 years had passed. 500,000 years. And in all their arrogance, they had never once considered that humanity would watch the stars not with reverence, but with preparation. A cold realization settled over the bridge. This was not the invasion of a lesser species. It was an ambush. Ulthar's claws tightened into fists of pure hatred. "Break their defenses," he commanded, his voice a whisper of cold fury. "Wipe them from existence." Krethi's mandibles clicked sharply, his warglaive grinding against his armor. It will be done. But even as the Netherians adjusted their formations, even as their warships turned their might toward burning Earth's hidden defenses to cinders, the void around them shifted. New energy signatures began appearing, from the dark edges of the system, from beneath the frozen shadows of Neptune, from stations thought to be long abandoned. Hundreds. Thousands. Ulthar's eyes narrowed as the sensors updated. The message was clear. Humanity was not defending. They were waiting. "Reorganize the formations. Spread the fleet." Supreme Warlord Ulthar's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The command bridge of the Niroskatal was a storm of flickering red emergency displays and the frantic movement of officers struggling to regain control. The carnage had been unlike anything the Netherians had ever faced. Hundreds of ships gone in an instant, their once glorious fleet ripped apart by an unseen enemy. The vast silence of space had been turned into a graveyard of twisted wreckage, Netherian bodies drifting among the remains. Ulthar's clawed hands gripped the armrests of his command throne as he forced himself to think past the fury boiling within him. "They fight like cowards, striking from the dark and retreating before we can retaliate," Subjugator Krethis snarled, his obsidian-plated form rigid with barely restrained rage. His four arms twitched, gripping the edge of the strategy console, the holographic display reflecting the crippling losses. "What are your orders, Supreme Warlord?" Ulthar's mandibles clicked sharply, his many black eyes scanning the data feeds. This was not an accident. It was not desperation. It was methodical, precise, a trap. But how? How had these insignificant creatures built such a defensive network, hidden from their sight? How had the Horde Netherian, masters of conquest, been caught off guard? His rage burned, but Ulthar buried it beneath calculation. "They are concealed. We expose them." His voice was cold, commanding. "Deploy the Sithrak swarm. Launch the Vorkon hunter drones. Strip away their illusions." Volkesh, his thin violet fingers tapping rapidly against the command console, responded immediately. "Swarms launching, Supreme Warlord. Long-range reconnaissance probes initiating deep system scans. They won't hide from us now." Across the shattered battlefield, thousands of Sithrak drones, small, insect-like machines with razor-thin scanning arrays, burst from Netherian carriers, sweeping through the system in a coordinated web of detection sweeps. At the same time, sleek Vorkon huntercraft, fast autonomous scouts, each barely larger than a drop pod, shot forward, their sensors burning through the electromagnetic spectrum, seeking out any sign of hidden human strongholds. The silence of space was broken by Netherian firepower. Weapons platforms hidden within asteroids and orbital wreckage were located and immediately obliterated under the combined fire of warship batteries. A hidden defensive array near the Martian orbit, masked to resemble an abandoned mining station, was pierced by Netherian lance cannons, its defenses crumbling before it could even return fire. Ulthar watched in satisfaction as some of the enemy's hidden defenses were finally revealed, their tricks beginning to fail. And yet, it was not enough, because every time a human position was uncovered, it was already too late. The stations were abandoned, weapons firing on automated cycles, their control hubs long empty. Some installations self-destructed before the Netherians could analyze them. "They are bleeding us without standing against us." Volkesh's voice was tense, his tendrils tightening around the edges of his console. Krethi slammed a heavy fist onto the command panel, causing a flicker in the holo display. "Then we stop attacking shadows. We drive them out. Force them to fight. We must." The ship lurched violently. A sudden strike from nowhere. A Netherian destroyer, utterly annihilated. A direct hit from an unseen weapon. "Another vessel lost," an officer shouted. "Weapons fire. Direction unknown." Ulthar's mandibles bared in fury, but his mind moved like a blade. They were tracking ghosts. Their senses, superior to nearly every species conquered before, were being manipulated. The enemy was not where they appeared to be. "They are feeding us false targets." Volkesh's realization came too late. From the rings of Saturn, a new wave of human firepower erupted. Ships, once masked by sensor interference, emerged in perfect flanking formation. The first barrage struck another dreadnought, gutting it in a single coordinated strike. Missiles from Titan's orbit, previously undetectable, burned through escort formations, severing their retreat lines. Then came the final insult, a single transmission, cutting into the Netherian fleet's secure channel. Admiral Pablo Machi's voice. "This is what happens when you march blindly into a war you don't understand." Ulthar's eyes went wide, his rage twisting into something colder. Not primitives. Predators. "Fire everything. Burn them from the void. If we cannot see them, then erase the darkness itself." But the Netherian fleet was already breaking apart. For the first time, the Horda Netherian, feared across the stars, was no longer advancing. "Bring the Malakar array online." Supreme Warlord. Ulthar's voice was cold, final. The order cut through the chaos of the command bridge like a blade, silencing the panicked exchanges of Netherian officers. The time for restraint had passed. Subjugator Krethis stiffened, his four-clawed hands tightening around the edges of the command dais. "Supreme Warlord, the Malakar array has only been used against planets incapable of resisting us." Ulthar interrupted. His many black eyes gleamed under the flickering lights of the battle-damaged bridge. "And yet, here we stand, bleeding, against a species that should have knelt at our arrival." Krethis hesitated no further. His mandibles clicked once in understanding. Then he turned sharply to the control officers. "Prepare the array. Full power. Target. Earth." Across the crippled Netherian fleet, a new sequence of commands rippled outward, overriding every other protocol. The surviving battleships and dreadnoughts shifted, forming a defensive line around their flagship as the Malakar array came online. A monolithic structure, embedded within the heart of the Nyroskatal, began to glow. The energy readings spiked beyond any previous battlefield engagement, the output so vast that the ship's hull itself groaned under the strain. Inside the bridge, strategist Volkesh flinched as his station's displays overloaded with power fluctuations. "We'll be operating beyond recommended thresholds. Enough. Fire the array. Let them witness the end of their world." A searing hum filled the void, growing into a deafening roar as the Malakar array activated in full force. From the belly of the Nyroskatal, a titanic lance of violet energy erupted into space. It shredded through the darkness, a beam so concentrated that it bent the fabric of light around it. Smaller fragments of debris and wreckage disintegrated instantly as the pulse tore through the void, accelerating toward Earth at unthinkable speed. The bridge crew of the flagship watched, breathless as the weapon struck its target, the Earth. The impact was instant, except nothing happened. No explosion, no devastation, no atmosphere tearing apart. The Malakar array, a weapon that had reduced entire continents to cinders, simply vanished as it reached the outer edge of the planet. Ulthar's mandibles parted slightly, his mind failing to process what his eyes were witnessing. The beam had dissolved, as if swallowed by the void. The bridge was silent, the once frantic voices now frozen in absolute disbelief. And then, a tremor spread through the Netherian fleet. Not from an external force, but from within. Sensors flickered wildly, entire displays short-circuiting as the energy signatures shifted violently. The holographic projection of Earth, the same planet they had observed since their arrival, pristine, primitive, vulnerable, distorted. The surface shimmered, as though the very fabric of reality were peeling away. Ulthar's breath caught in his throat. Before his many eyes, the Earth transformed. Not a simple world, barely touched by spaceflight, but a fortress. Colossal structures now dominated the planet's surface, towering strongholds hidden beneath advanced optical distortion fields. Vast orbital arrays, once disguised as ancient satellites, were now revealed as weaponized platforms. The illusion had shattered. Ulthar's mandibles twitched violently, his mind racing as he struggled to comprehend the impossible. They lied to us. Volkesh's voice was barely a whisper, his tendrils twitching in disbelief. No, not just lied. They made us blind. Krethis, usually unshaken by any battlefield, staggered back, his armored form trembling. That's not possible. Ulthar's claws dug into his throne, fury boiling beneath his exoskeleton. They've been hiding their true strength this entire time, he hissed. Then, another flicker. The Earth shifted again, returning to its original pristine state. The sprawling megastructures, the planetary defenses, the vast military installations, gone. Back was the world of oceans and scattered cities. Back was the illusion. Ulthar's body went rigid. His entire fleet had been deceived from the moment they arrived. For 500,000 years, they had assumed humanity was waiting for them as servants. Instead, they had spent 500,000 years evolving, preparing for war. And the Nithirians had walked right into it. The void pulsed with the aftershocks of destruction. The once mighty Nithirian fleet, masters of planetary conquest, now drifted in fractured formations, thousands of warships limping from unseen wounds. The cold abyss of space had betrayed them. The humans, these primitives, had turned it into a battlefield without walls, a labyrinth of death hidden behind illusions. Supreme Warlord Ulthar stood frozen at the heart of the Nyrosktal, his clawed hands gripping the edges of his command throne. His golden battle armor, once a symbol of divine authority, felt heavier now. His many black eyes swept over the flickering battle reports. Entire formations had been torn apart by weapons that should not exist. The humans' deception had been flawless. Yet the moment for retribution had come. "Regroup the fleet!" Ulthar's voice echoed through the command bridge, the deep resonance of his command masking the fury boiling beneath. "Form a defensive wall. Prepare for full retaliation." Subjugator Krethis, his monstrous frame rigid with tension, slammed his fists against the strategy console, mandibles flaring wide. His obsidian armor gleamed under the flickering emergency lights. "Supreme Warlord, our warships are still repositioning from the ambush. If we do not take control of this battlefield now..." A new sensor alarm shrieked through the bridge. Volkesh, his violet skin ashen under the shifting holoscreens, turned in disbelief. His long talon-like fingers trembled as they scrolled through the readings. New contacts. Incoming at high velocity. Krethis turned sharply, his deep-set eyes narrowing. From where? Volkesh hesitated, his voice faltering. Everywhere. Then, the void split open. From the shadow of the Earth and Moon, massive vessels emerged, human warships, vast as cities, engines roaring like ancient titans. They ascended like specters from the dark, armored leviathans bearing no insignia, no warning. Their hulls shimmered with light reflective plating, only now revealing their existence. The first appeared in low orbit above the planet, monstrous battleships leading entire fleets in perfect unison. They surged forward, flanking the Nithirian formation, weapons bristling in the dim glow of Earth's sun. But they were only the beginning. From the depths of the system, more ships came, faint distortions in the dark, revealing entire armadas. Titan-class dreadnoughts, their thick hulls plated with alloy darker than the void itself, emerged from the rings of Saturn. Hypersonic cruisers surged from behind the moons of Jupiter. Stealth corvettes, smaller but deadly, bled out from Neptune's frozen horizon. A complete encirclement. The Netherian command bridge fell into a stunned silence. Ulthar's mandibles twitched, his voice low, strained. "This is impossible." Krethys took a step forward, the tactical projection before him, flickering as more and more human warships filled the void. The sheer scale of it shattered every assumption they had made. "There was never a war fleet," Volkesh murmured, horror sinking into his voice. "Not one we could see." Ulthar let out a growl. His eyes snapped to the holoscreen as a new signal cut through their secured channels. A transmission. Admiral Pablo Machi's voice returned, calm, controlled, absolute. "Netherian fleet, you are surrounded. Stand down immediately, or be destroyed." Ulthar snarled, his claws curling into fists. "They dare dictate terms." Kreth's gaze burned. "We have the firepower to fight our way out." Then, a new sensor alarm blared. Volkesh, his voice nearly breaking, whispered, "No, we don't." More human warships appeared. Dozens, hundreds. From beyond the orbit of Neptune, from behind the asteroid fields of the Kuiper Belt, from cloaked positions that had been there the entire time, yet invisible to even Netherian sensors. Ulthar's blood ran cold. This was no simple battle. It was a hunt. And the Netherians were the prey. The void around them, once vast and empty, had become a closing noose. Kreth's voice, usually a growl of absolute dominance, was now a breathless rasp. "How?" Ulthar straightened, his golden armor gleaming under the chaotic lights of the bridge. His rage was now laced with something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. "They've been waiting for us," Volkesh whispered, the realization sinking deep. "For centuries." Another voice, deep and cold, emerged through the open channel. "You were never gods," Machi said. "You were bait." The command bridge of the Niroskatal fell into pure silence. Then, the human fleet opened fire. From Earth's shadow, the dreadnought UNS Abyss, a vessel larger than any Netherian ship, unleashed its main cannon. A burning lance of white-hot plasma, guided by magneto-gravitic stabilizers, erupted through the void. The impact was immediate. A Netherian war carrier, one of the few remaining front-line vessels, was vaporized in an instant. The Abyss fired again. Another warship, obliterated. Then the entire fleet followed. Railguns roared. Hypervelocity torpedoes burned across the void. Stealth warships, once hidden, delivered surgical strikes against high-command vessels. It was not a battle, it was annihilation. Ulthar staggered back, his vision flickering between his burning fleet and the growing horror on his officers' faces. For 500,000 years, they had believed humanity was waiting for them. Instead, humanity had spent every moment preparing. And now, the Horde Netherian was dying. Ulthar's mind, always sharp, desperate for control, scrambled for options. "Redirect the fleet," he snapped. "Focus all power on breaking through their weakest point. We must—" Another explosion rocked the Niroskatal, not from human fire, from the rear. Krethys turned sharply, his eyes widening. "More of them!" he rasped. A final wave of human ships emerged from behind them, a final trap. The first Netherian warship erupted into fire. A dreadnought, once the spearhead of planetary subjugation, was torn apart by a precisely calculated salvo of kinetic rounds. Its hull, reinforced with bioalloy, cracked and splintered under the relentless assault, its reactor detonating in a silent explosion that sent debris spiraling into the void. Then, another, and another. The battlefield transformed into a graveyard of Netherian vessels. Humanity's counteroffensive had begun. The UNS Abyss led the charge, its colossal frame cutting through the darkness like a war god made manifest. Its main rail cannon, an electromagnetic behemoth designed to fire slugs at relativistic speeds, unleashed devastation with every cycle. In perfect synchronization, 2 Titan-class battleships flanked its advance, their broadside batteries lighting up the void with coordinated fire. Each round struck true. Netherian warships crumbled, their defensive formations disintegrating as precision overtook brute force. From the left flank, the UNS Heaven emerged, leading a formation of strike cruisers and corvettes in a flanking maneuver. The ship's hull, dark as the abyss it was named for, shimmered with adaptive plating, warping sensor readings as it weaved through the wreckage. When the Nitherian fleet attempted to reposition, they found themselves caught between fire lines. On the right, the UNS Inferno and its fleet of escort destroyers executed a rapid attack formation, their pulse laser defense turrets neutralizing Nitherian missile barrages with mechanical efficiency. In its wake, swarms of human fighters and bombers maneuvered like a school of predatory fish, carving through the vulnerable spots of the enemy formation. Ulthar's command bridge descended into chaos. "They're cutting us apart," an officer shrieked, his mandibles clicking erratically as he fought to maintain battle coordination. His elongated arms, tipped with razor-sharp talons, scrambled over the control panels, his bioluminescent skin flickering with stress. Ulthar ignored him. He could see it with his own eyes. The enemy wasn't fighting with overwhelming force. They were dismantling the Nitherian armada, ship by ship, exploiting every gap, every hesitation. "Redirect the carrier groups," Krethis bellowed, his voice a guttural snarl of desperation. "Have the vanguard ships pull back." A new impact rocked the Nyrosktal. Another explosion. Another piece of their fleet gone. They had been tricked, trapped, hunted. Their fleet was once an unstoppable tide, but now it was a series of isolated clusters, each one being reduced to burning wreckage by human battle formations. The UNS Abyss fired again. Another massive Nitherian dreadnought, one of their last, took the full impact. The projectile tore through its superstructure, severing its spine in a violent shockwave of debris. A second later, the ship split apart, spilling Nitherian bodies into the void, their lifeless forms drifting amongst the wreckage of their shattered empire. Ulthar's claws curled into fists. His golden armor, once a symbol of his unbreakable rule, felt heavy upon his shoulders. "How?" Krethis' voice was shaking now. "How are they doing this?" The answer was already clear. Humanity had not been cowering in ignorance, waiting for gods to return. They had been waiting for this, for war, for victory, and the Nitherians had walked willingly into their hands. Ulthar's eyes darkened as the Nyrosktal's displays flickered with a new transmission request. "Pablo Maque." The transmission cut through the chaos, his voice as cold and controlled as ever. "Supreme Warlord Ulthar," Maque said, his tone devoid of any emotion. "You have lost." Ulthar's mandibles tightened. "You dare!" "You are surrounded," Maque interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. "Your fleet is burning. Your escape routes are gone. You will leave now, or we will erase the last of you from existence." Krethis slammed a fist onto the console. "This vermin!" "Silence!" Ulthar hissed, his many eyes fixed on the human admiral's holographic form. The bridge was deathly quiet. Behind Maque, the strategic displays of the UNS Abyss flickered, revealing the full scope of humanity's fleet. It was not merely the ships they had seen. The void still pulsed with concealed dreadnoughts, cruisers, and hidden artillery platforms waiting to strike. If they stayed, they wouldn't be remembered as conquerors. They wouldn't be remembered at all. They would die. All of them. Krethis' breathing was ragged, his body coiled with suppressed rage. But even he knew. There was no war left to fight. The shattered remnants of the Nitherian fleet drifted aimlessly through the void, the once glorious warships now nothing more than charred husks bleeding atmosphere into the abyss. The few surviving vessels struggled to maintain cohesion, their battered hulls scarred by relentless human firepower. The cold silence of space was filled only with the dying whispers of destroyed warships, the occasional flicker of emergency beacons blinking from the wreckage. On the bridge of the Nyrosktal, Supreme Warlord Ulthar stood motionless, his clawed hands gripping the edges of his command throne so tightly that the reinforced alloy groaned under the pressure. His golden armor, once radiant with the promise of conquest, was now a dull reflection of failure. His many black eyes fixated on the tactical display before him, a grim tableau of his empire's ruin. This was not how it was meant to be. Krethis, his massive frame battered from the violent tremors that had rocked the bridge, staggered forward, his obsidian armor now cracked and smeared with biofluid from the wounded officers around him. His mandibles quivered with rage, but even he, one of the most feared subjugators of the Horda Netherian, could not deny the truth before him. "They were meant to be ours," Krethis growled, his deep-set eyes flickering between the ruins of their once unbeatable armada. "We shaped them, molded them. We gave them our image, our strength, and left them to grow. How did they—" His voice faltered. Volkesh, his violet-hued skin, almost luminescent under the emergency lighting, turned sharply, his elongated fingers trembling over his station. His voice was hollow. "We were deceived. We believed them to be as they appeared. That was our mistake." Ulthar's mandibles clicked once, his gaze unreadable. "No." His voice was slow, deliberate. "Our mistake was assuming they still remembered their place." The bridge fell silent. Then the human spoke. A transmission cut through the fleet-wide channels, the image of Admiral Pablo Mackay once again flickering to life in front of them. His face was impassive, his eyes like steel. Behind him, the bridge of the UNS Abyss remained calm, his officers coordinating the final strategic adjustments of their overwhelming victory. Ulthar's mandibles twitched in anticipation, but Maki did not gloat. He did not mock. His voice remained as cold and steady as it had been from the moment the Nitherians entered the system. "You claim to have created us," Maki said, his tone devoid of amusement. "That we are yours by right. That this was always meant to be." Ulthar straightened, his armor groaning under the shift. "It was," he spat. "You were built from our designs, shaped in our vision. You were to serve, to stand among the stars under our banner, to—" "No." Maki's voice was like a gunshot. The simple denial shattered whatever remained of Ulthar's failing resolve. "You didn't create us. You lied to us." Krethis' mandibles clicked aggressively. "You wouldn't exist without us," he snarled. Maki exhaled softly, as if pitying the creature before him. "And yet, here we stand." The bridge of the Nyroskatal was utterly silent. Ulthar's eyes flickered toward the battle display, where the last fragments of his once mighty fleet hung in the void, aimless, broken. The crushing reality pressed down on him like the gravity of a dying star. Mackay took a single step forward, his gaze unwavering. "If we see you again," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty, "it won't be as your lost children. It will be as your rightful heirs." Ulthar's breath hitched. "We will come to your world," Maki continued, his voice sharp as a blade. "And we will take everything you once thought was yours." Krethis took a step back, his massive frame rigid with disbelief. Volkesh's elongated fingers twitched violently over his controls, his bioluminescent skin dimming in dread. The entire bridge seemed to freeze under the weight of the words. Ulthar's many eyes locked onto the human admiral's face. The arrogance was gone, the mockery absent. There was only certainty. Maki tilted his head slightly. "Do you understand?" Ulthar could not speak. His gaze drifted to the wreckage beyond the bridge windows, where the last of his warship still flickered with dying light. He looked at his command displays, where over 80% of the fleet had been reduced to debris. He looked at his officers, some trembling, others staring into the void, the realization of true defeat sinking into their bones. The warlord of the Horda Netherian clenched his fists and bowed his head. We were not prepared," Ulthar admitted, his voice barely a whisper. His mandibles twitched, his golden armor feeling suffocating. "We did not, could not, foresee this." His hands trembled. Maki remained silent. Ulthar hissed slowly, his voice breaking as he forced the words out. Withdraw. Krethis whirled toward him, his massive body tensing. Supreme Warlord, you can't… Ulthar's gaze snapped toward him, and for the first time, Krethis saw not defiance, not fury, only defeat. I will not watch the Horda Nathirian be extinguished, Ulthar said, his voice suddenly a snarl of command. We leave. Now. Krethis's jaw clenched, his mandibles twitching as if he wanted to argue, but he didn't. The last orders were issued. Across the battlefield, the surviving Nathirian vessels, crippled and barely operational, began turning away from the Terran system. Their battered thrusters ignited, forming a broken procession of retreating warships. The once mighty fleet of conquest, which had arrived in the system as a tidal wave of dominance, now fled like wounded prey. On the Nyroskatal, Ulthar turned back to the human admiral, his throat dry. You are not what we expected, he admitted. His voice, once booming with the power of a ruler, now shook with an uncertainty he could not suppress. Never could we have predicted this. Maki did not respond. Ulthar took a slow, shallow breath. Forgive my arrogance. The transmission cut. The human fleet did not fire. Not one shot followed them as they limped away. As the Horda Nathirian left the solar system in disgrace, Ulthar sat in silence, his hands shaking. He stared at the dim displays before him, the wreckage of his dreams, the unbearable weight of what he had just witnessed. He had once thought humanity would be perfect servants. He had never imagined they would become something far, far greater. And now, as he watched the darkness swallow the burning remains of his fleet, one thought haunted him more than anything else. We thought we were the gods, but we were never the strongest. Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, and one last thing. Every great soldier knows that to survive and become a hero, taking care of yourself is key. So before you go, check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's important. And I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.